Hey everyone, welcome to a somewhat impromptu but very much needed episode of Trading Spaces. We were originally going to hold off until next week to record another episode because we thought we would be chopping around in a range continuously until then. And wow, we were wrong. Bitcoin's had its biggest day of the year. We saw one of the single largest short liquidation events in the history of Bitcoin. So there's quite a lot to dig into. A lot of positivity, good vibes that I'm sure many of you are pretty aware from just being on CT. So lots and lots that we can dig into. Before we do any of that, though, just a quick disclaimer, everything that we discuss today is for educational purposes only. None of it is or should be construed as financial advice. Den, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You know me, if there's candles up or down, they're doing something, I'm happy. So this is amazing to see some action. I was definitely waiting for this. And yeah, interesting. We really wanted to skip this week for streaming, but we just had to jump on the mic, I guess, considering circumstances.
Absolutely. We tried to get out and they pulled us right back in, but it's well worth it. Uh, so yesterday, a lot happened, and a lot happened real quick. We're going to dive into some of the different charts at the moment. Obviously, I mean, it's been the first time in a long, long time that we've seen kind of BTC God candle like we saw yesterday. A huge violent move upwards, along with ETH and a bunch of other assets, which we'll go into in more detail. But I think what we'll talk about today, and I know you've got a lot of this laid out, Dan, is at this point, what is it that you want to be looking at across the charts to validate whether, this momentum has legs and you should flip pretty bullish, or
Mm.
invalidates this across kind of different charts. And I think, before we dive into those kind of levels, it's just worth like really quickly explaining for anyone um, that isn't aware, like what drove this, and if you should be cautious about anything here. Ultimately, what's been driving us down for such a long time um, in recent months and weeks has really been the fact that macro has played center stage. Inflation has been constantly rising, or at least has remained very high. And in particular, 30-year yields, long dated yields in the US have been just on an upward trajectory, which we saw yesterday in a very unexpected way that the US Treasury, through Scott Bessent, actually intervening, and the Treasury saying that they would double their buybacks of long dated bonds in an attempt to basically bring down 30-year yields, because this is creating an enormous interest burden on US debt payments. Now, off the back of this, 30-year yields plunged, and basically everything else went up, which was great. But looking at it today, and I think as maybe people are taking a step back and saying, okay, is this actually real? Is this going to do something? I think the thing that would just give me a little bit of pause here is the fact that um, US 30-year yields today haven't fully reversed, but they're not far off it. And I think it's the bond market's way of saying, hey, okay, this is fine, but this is a drop in the bucket. And actually, all of the fundamentals here are still a big problem. This kind of like
Mm.
reminds me in like the crypto analogy of when like the failing protocol just does like a big buyback and pumps their token price. Is basically what Besant has done here. Um, it's like a short-term piece. But
Mm,
I mean, that said, there's it's still very positive, and I think what probably crypto is pricing in is like, hey, let's look at what the treasury's doing here and the fact that actually they might intervene again because
that's what I
Besant is
was
already
thinking. Yeah.
exactly. I think that's the piece. I mean, Besant is the most interventionist treasury secretary in like at least the past 20, 30 years. They everything they did to support the yen recently was kind of out of the blue, and it's reasonable to think that. At the same time, you have this like worry of course, everything in Iran, but also next month we have a rate decision, and that could make things even more interesting. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, well, I'm sure we'll dig into this a lot more because I think the dust needs to settle, and I think the right thing for us today to
Absolutely.
do is really dig into the charts. But I think there's just been a lot of good vibes around crypto as well yesterday, right? Like we had the White House Crypto Summit. You
Trump
had
saying hyperliquid on stream. Holy
oh
shit.
my goodness, crazy. It was like a 20% green candle on Hyperliquid after that, on Hype.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, we had some of the Kraken, obviously our CEO, speaking at the White House Summit, along with basically everyone who's anybody in crypto. So a lot of stuff happening alongside all of this, and a big push in from ETF inflows. But we'll see. I mean, we're not in the same boring range anymore, which is good.
Yay.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty positive. We're so what are we looking at, Den? Like, should we be bullish? Should everyone be full clipping in right now and just YOLOing all of their savings into this single green candle?
Listen, right now, I would say absolutely not because we have just bumped a lot and we are facing resistance. However, I think structurally, this is definitely the most interesting thing we have done in a very long time. I think that honestly, yesterday's candle is the most exciting candle we've had in the entirety of the bear market.
Yeah.
Personally, that's really my opinion. And I think we have a really good chance of doing something very beautiful here and kind of like setting the stage for the step one of climbing out of this, you know, bottom, climbing out of the gutters. And I thought it was super interesting because, as you guys know, I'm an EMA trader and I will always look at that, especially, because they're such a good indicator for bull and bear, even though they're a little bit lagging, they will give you often that confirmation. What we are seeing now is that we're kind of seeing like BTC trying to reclaim and then ETH having like a full on reclaim, like no doubts about that, right? Like this candle is beautiful, the one from yesterday. But what we
Unbelievable.
usually see, unbelievable. What we usually see in bear markets, and I analyze them all, is that we kind of have like this time spent below the EMAs while they're bearish, which is what we were doing now, in 2026. Then kind of we're starting to reclaim, and then we have like a little bit more fuckery at some point. I can scroll back
Mm.
and show you the other ones, but they're all like this. But the thing is that rarely at the end of a bear we reclaim, or rarely, never, and then not start eventually the new leg. There's always some fuckery, but we
I would
will
take a
usually
fuckery
start.
zone. I would take a
Oh, for
fuckery zone
sure.
any day of the week at this
Me
point.
too.
Yeah.
You know what? My favorite scenario is that we sustain this momentum for a little bit and then have huge fuckery around mid-September with that whole Fed decision. That to
and
me,
and also just like September, it's this
yeah,
couldn't have
back to
happened, I think,
desk.
at a better time. Yeah, back to desk, high vol, like period of
Exactly.
time. Everything is shaping up that way, right?
100%. And you know what's so funny? Remember that I tweeted that B-vol chart a few days ago and you
Yes.
retweeted it? That was literally the bottom of the low volatility. That was like the end of
Yeah.
it. That's right after that we bumped. And I said in my tweet, I was like, I'm open to any direction. I hope lower for my own sake so I can buy more coins cheap. But of course, we went up and we had to adapt. I think right now, what is the most important thing for BTC, and I'll go over ETH in a little bit, is that we hold like the important moves that we have made, which is firstly this diagonal confluent with 2021 all-time high. And then of course we have now our EMAs. This one is not confirmed that we have reclaimed because the daily hasn't closed, but this one of course has been reclaimed. What the bulls want to see now is that this starts to move up and then eventually hopefully they will cross, but that seems you know, a little bit far away, but let's see how it goes. But we want to kind of hold the steps that we have taken. I think that is the most important thing that we should do. This is another thing that comes to mind, right? Kind of like the range high that we were in since the beginning of June. So this whole zone we can see as a little bit of a box, kind of that we really, really want to hold. But I will say though, if BTC has momentum, usually it doesn't like stall and dips a lot. We usually just go. So that is kind of like what I would like to see. But of course, we have a lot of work to do here. We have the 1-day 200 facing currently. Then we have these April lows, which was kind of like, you know, this whole range. There's like a lot of resistance here. And then last but not least, if I'll delete all of this, we also have on the weekly time frame our weekly trend, which is one of my favorite indicators for a bull or a bear market. Apologies for all my drawings. And you can see here in 2022, the second that we started reclaiming it, yes, we had that, you know, fuckery dip that was, you know, really scary for some people, but you know, it was like the start of us climbing out of the bear market. It's usually like that. We don't have enough history here, I think, but with COVID it was the same. So right now we are facing that same thing from below. So I would say like where we are right now is where we have the most work to do. If we manage to climb out of this and kind of like retest it and hold it, that would be like our send off to, you know, higher levels. Yeah, eyes peeled, super, super interesting. Like I said, I don't think it's the time right now to open a lot of new positions. I think the last time to do that was this morning on some altcoins that were kind of like breaking out. But yeah, I would like to see some structure develop here personally. And then on ETH, yeah, I think this looks even better because this has already reclaimed that 1-day 200. Also, I would
Just
say the
then,
range,
just before we go
yes.
into ETH on BTC, you mentioned, you know, you wouldn't be buying here, which I completely agree with, right? Um, what is that? What is the moment where you'd be saying, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna jump in and start kind of allocating again? Like what over what time frame and where would you feel better about saying, okay, I'm ready to start buying again?
I think if we do any like nice dips into that zone, I think those are good buys because at that point your invalidation is like super close. If it starts showing weakness, you know that that wasn't the retest that we thought it was, and you know, you're kind of like have an easy out in that sense. Like I don't think being stopped out is a bad thing if you manage your risk. So anything like that is nice, or anywhere where we confirm kind of like that, you know, higher high and then do some sort of retest. I think any next big dip, if the current structures confirm, I think that's a good dip to buy personally.
Yep.
I'm very much of that opinion. And we of course also want to take a little look at the lower time frame there, right? Like right now things are pretty extended. So to me, this type of PA is a little bit hard to action on. I like to get in, you know, before the impulse move or after we have a little bit of lower time frame stuff that shows us like what we want to do. Like let's say these EMAs, they move up and we just see a little bit of that consolidation here and then we kind of start looking pushy. That is something that I would like. But now we're a little bit hanging, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That makes complete sense.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely hoping for a scenario where we have a little bit of nice PA from here and then have some massive fuckery later on where everyone thinks it's over again. And like that's where I would like to buy personally.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Because
would
I
be
haven't
nice
bought
if
any
we
BTC
really.
yet.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I
I know
remember
you
we were.
did at 58.5. Great job.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I think, we were talking a little bit before this, and I mentioned when we were on stream around the time, yeah, when we hit 58.5 was the first time in, wow, quite some time that I'd bought BTC. But I was still thinking, okay, let's let's get a decent amount of size in at this level, but was still at that point thinking, I think we see 55, 52 kind of range where we can go and buy more. But I think at this point, I would still, I'm still very happy with like the price action we're seeing, to be completely honest. I think we're gonna have plenty of opportunities to
Yeah,
to get back in here,
I
assuming
think so too.
we see the right moves.
And even if we reject here and we kind of do like a really deep dive into something like here, I would like 100% still buy that. I
Yes.
think the next few months we should really take the opportunities that we get. And I think, and I've said this also a few times, I can't remember if it was on stream or in the EMA series, but whenever a market is trying to bottom out, we will often see some fake outs and some really strange price action that's kind of like making you question whether it's the bottom or not. And
Mm,
I'm open to those scenarios. I think time wise, it makes a lot of sense that we are moving towards the end of the bear. And I think also just with everything coming up with the Fed and just kind of like the sort of signaling that they're doing with that buybacks that you were speaking about.
yep.
I think there could be something brewing here, you know? So I'm personally ready to snipe like any dips that present. And I think, yeah, the first one that we, of course, both executed on was hype. This is
Yes.
the scenario we marked out, made a little screenshot of that.
Hmm.
And of course, we went exactly, into those EMAs. I should have bought a little bit more, especially here, but I'm happy with my 52, 53 entries that I have. And I think
Yep.
hype will be something interesting that I would like to potentially load up more of as well if we either
Yeah,
get a
this
dip
chart,
or really good
this
breakouts.
this one is just a really exciting chart. Yeah, I think we talked maybe the last stream we were on about the entries that we made at that level. I think you got a slightly nicer entry than me. I think I was just around
Hmm.
53, but um the thing that I really like about hype is obviously we have all of this um, broader market momentum. But then there's this other narrative piece, which hype always just does really well on positive news. I mean, Trump coming out and saying that he wants to bring Hyperliquid legally into the US.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and we saw like a 20% move in just off that. That was an insane move that we saw yesterday. So yeah, this is really cool, and we're approaching like all-time high like levels. So this is like a super exciting chart, I think, as it
A hundred
often
percent.
is. And the other kind of thing with Hyperliquid is that you've kind of got this additional piece that we've talked about a lot before, which is kind of the buyback element. And it's in bullish, or actually in high volatility moments. Obviously, Hyperliquid does much better on its like fees, which means it increases its buybacks, etc., etc. So it's just like whether that plays directly into price action or just is like part of the narrative. You just kind of get the feeling that this is an asset that you want to be on board with during these kind of high momentum moments.
100%. And it's kind of giving me a little bit the feeling that Solana had back then. I'm not sure. I hope we support it from back in those days. Let's
I think we should,
see.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, oh no, we're just missing what I'm talking about. So this was like obviously the first run of Solana. And
Oh
here
yes.
I will draw it because this was one of my favorite trades that I took in my career. So I remember it very well. It was something like this, the original PA, and then here it went like that. And then we had like this kind of like breakout. And I remember a lot of people saying like, you're crazy if you buy this breakout. This is like never gonna work. It's like it's pumped already so much, blah blah blah. And then of course it went, super super high. Not saying that the same thing has to happen to Hype. I'm also not sure what their comparative market cap would be at that point, but it does make me feel a little bit like that. That it's kind of like the thing of the cycle that has just so much potential there. And that, yes, in that sense, it feels like really kind of weird to buy something so close to its all-time highs. But then on the other hand, if we are moving towards a new bull market, I do think that this is gonna be like one of the great runners, and I'm
I
happy to
agree.
have that exposure and looking forward to having more exposure if I get the chance. But let's see.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. This is definitely in that bucket where it's like this thing has already ran so much. It's already one of the like highest market cap coins. Like how can it go higher? And then, you fast forward like 18 months time, and if it does play out, everyone looks back and it's like that was the most obvious trade ever, right? But it's like, it's it's great when it comes off, but I have a very similar feeling. I mean, BTC and Hype are the only two things I own right now.
Yeah.
And I feel very good about both of those. Even with ETH making like big, big moves, it's just been hard to get on board with ETH for the longest time, as we've discussed it in detail.
Mm. Agree. I will say though, this range, I will even delete this just to make it more clear. This is like one of the cleanest ranges I've seen in a very long time on such a high level. So
Mm,
that is like very interesting to me. And what I like about this is that we kind of like have all of these lows that are touching on the 0.75, or actually this is reversed, it should be 25.
yeah,
Um, but that level is so confluent with so many of those, previous touches. And then now we have those EMAs kind of like coming in around that too. And I do think that we're gonna have like a situation where, you know, this is gonna be like that, maybe that retest, and we're gonna see whether this wants to move up or not. I think ETH will be a really good strength indicator in the next few weeks, and therefore also for altcoins, kind of a good indicator whether we want to keep trading those or not.
yeah.
Um,
It's always the markets. As much as obviously I want BTC to rally and I love it, the most fun I've always had in markets are off the back of an ETH rally. It's
of
just like
course,
it's
for
just always
sure.
so much fun, right? And we just have so many other opportunities as people chase like the beta trade on it. Um, so yeah, I
100%.
mean,
Yeah, that is actually something a lot of my friends are talking about in the group chats, and that I also tweeted about this morning. Is like ETH beta,
mhm.
however you want to pronounce it, for the next coming weeks because ETH has performed so well. And as we can see here on EPTC, also really continues to outperform BTC there. This candle close from yesterday, super strong. We have the opportunity here to close our EMAs in the right order, which we haven't done, yeah, since this little rally end of 2025. So I think that is something I'm definitely looking at. And there's two coins that come together in that narrative. One is Athena, always a good bet when it comes to the ETH narrative. I did buy a little bit this morning, tweeted about it here when we were breaking out. Could be a really beautiful gap play. Um, it has had its fair share of rejections. So I think like if we're actually breaking out of this structure, that it will hopefully now be that real move.
And we've talked about Athena a few times, even recently, talking a little bit about this. I think we talked in the last session about some of the rejections and how it was like looking a little bit like a bouncing ball, wasn't it? But then, this was it's always hard to compare pre 1010, but this was one of those very early movers in the big rally we had last year in the good times that was. And it kind of it just always sticks to me. I always keep an eye on this chart as just one of those that when you see strength in ETH, this amongst a select handful of others. I know at the time Pengu
For
was another
sure.
one, which in fairness I haven't looked at that chart, and a few others that just had good strength as a first mover.
100%. And what is so exciting is that the strength is followed, or well, the strength is following the kind of most classic bottom structure that you can think of,
Yeah.
where it's like macro bottom, attempts to break down, isn't working, and then kind of like starts to push up against that EMA and then breaks out. That is just super beautiful. And speaking of Pengu that you mentioned, they all look really similar, honestly.
Yeah.
Like we can see here the
All this
same
is
thing.
yeah.
It's such a macro bottom with attempts to break down, and then it's just not working, and therefore, it's now going up. Many such cases. It's really exciting. I do really think that we are doing that bottom formation that the bear market likes to do. And
I
right
like
now
this chart
it
actually
isn't
in
good.
particular.
Yeah. Look at
I
that
was watch
retest. Super
yeah.
nice.
The nice thing I think about ETHFI that I think is worth talking about because I started looking at this last week, and notice like you'll notice here, right? Like this move upwards was way before yesterday. This move happened at the start of this week and over the weekend, I believe. And the move upwards, where we had kind of this nice kind of gap fill really up, is they had some like product announcement stuff where for anyone that didn't know, EtherFi was, one of the like darlings of the restaking era. And then while they still do that, and I think a lot of their revenue comes from that, they also shifted into being kind of like this crypto neobank. And I think they were like teasing an announcement for quite a while. And then I think they added a load of tokenized assets, and they have, I think, probably like one of the leading DeFi card products as well. So, like, what I like
Oh,
about
really? I
this
didn't
is,
know that.
yeah, it's actually a really solid card, and the team is actually really good. I know some of the team at ETHFI. Um, the so with all of that, it was like okay, like there was some really nice price action, and then we had yesterday, and this has been, especially like last year, one of the assets that is so intrinsically linked to the value of ETH as well. Just feels like I've been watching this probably closer than any other alt at the moment.
Yeah. I see why. I mean, besides all the fundamentals you just mentioned, which I did not know about, so thanks for sharing. This is like one of those kind of outperformers that's climbing out of the gutters earlier than others, where we just saw with Athena. Athena was only here, right? Trying to reclaim that one day
Yeah.
100. And then now this one has not only reclaimed the one day 200, it is flipping it actively. We can see like a perfect retest, super shallow retest, which is really a signal of strength as well. And now we're kind of attempting to move higher. And I think this is kind of like a blueprint that you want to get into your mind for the next couple of weeks if BTC and ETH hold these levels, because a lot of these alts, they kind of look the same and they take the same steps to get to a higher point up and to the right on the chart, if that makes sense. So if
Yep.
you know that, how it works, you can replicate those same setups across different charts and make some money?
Mhm. Definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I also saw Link.
That
Also
is
the same
a
as
that is a
yeah,
coin
same
I
as
haven't heard
ETHFI.
in a while.
I know, but this is the crazy thing. There's like charts that we haven't thought about for so long that are making these moves.
Mm.
And they're one by one climbing out. And that's why I liked Athena, because Athena is doing this step over here. And we talked about
I
this many
wonder
times. This
I wonder if there was like
yes.
some news or something around like Chainlink, like what was driving that like move upwards? Because everything else was dead, right? Like
People
practically.
had opinions on it on my below my tweet.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, about the Link Marines. It's super funny. I don't know. It looks good, I will say. I mean, listen, a lot of these old coins they did well, right? We had Uni, we had Lido,
Yeah.
we have CRV, which also structurally is rejecting now a bit, but it's trying the same thing
Mm.
to kind of like break out. Yeah, one by one. I really think like if you have altcoins that you like fundamentally, you want to be doing some buying over the next few weeks, with these things climbing out of their bottoms, whether that's on confirmation, whether that's on dips, assuming that you know your way around price action. I don't think it's a bad idea to shop around a bit personally. And of course,
What are
not
we
full clipping
seeing?
that stuff,
Yeah.
but you know.
Yeah, for sure. Are we seeing any hot air rise? Is there anything on the meme coin side of things that's worth looking at this
Oh
point?
God.
Like,
Yeah, I like this a lot as well. Same
yeah, it
thing.
looks similar to like Athena, like and Pengu, just gap fill opportunity potentially. But yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, they all look the same, just climbing out of the bottom. So the question is always going to be like what's like the targets people have for these altcoins, right? Because diminishing
Hmm.
returns every cycle, there's more coins. Then there's like the new shiny things. Although I will say I haven't heard about a lot of interesting new things launching. I mean, we have had a few things that were launched not so recently, like VVV, Morpho, Lighter, but it feels also already like
I
old,
honestly think
kind
this
of.
is, I think this is one of the things that is going to make the next kind of like transition into the bull a lot more interesting because I think what we saw kind of coming into last year, typically like when around the time we hit BTC all-time high, before 1010 alts, like everyone was like, where's this alt season, like when's it going to happen, and it never really did happen, right? And I think that what we also had, and I remember this being a big discussion topic across CT and also pretty much every single podcast at the time, was just like, do we just have like token apathy? Is it just this, there were so many things launching, and now since 1010 it's been extremely difficult to launch anything. That there was a
Yeah.
bunch of angel deals that I did over the past 4 or 5 years, and a lot of them where I was like, these are just actually like the really good projects that are really solid. So many of them just had to basically just shut up shop this year, and it was kind of like, yeah, we're I think about like whole sectors, most of like the BTC layer twos and DeFi space that had a ton of hype around it, basically all of them like are gone. No one's launching anything new. The only thing I think we saw any kind of vague newness around was, like you say, the perp dexes. But yeah, probably Lighter was one of the last ones, but that was also pre 1010.
Yeah.
Lighter
Yeah.
was, what was it? April of last year, somewhere like that. So
Mm.
we just haven't had that. So is that a benefit, right? Like, is that if there is a smaller pool, less attention, we haven't seen the same kind of explosion in memes. Now, anything can happen, and I'm sure it will. But I think it could make for a really interesting setup with that would kind of bring us more akin to the kind of setup we had coming into like the 2021 bull versus what we saw kind of maybe last year.
100%. I mean, I hope we get some quality ones. I just hope it's like less, you know what I mean? Less and then more quality because maybe people are more scared to launch and it's harder to get capital these days after everything that happened. But maybe if there's, some good months in a row and a little bit of faith returns to the industry, maybe that could change something. I
Yeah.
don't know. I
I
mean,
wouldn't be
for
surprised if we see a lot of like consolidation starting to happen and like a
mm,
lot of like projects getting kind of bought up and merged together, things like this that could be interesting. Um
for sure.
but yeah, I think it's still like I'm still trying to shake off the effects of 1010 when it comes to alts. I don't know how you're feeling. I know you've made actually a few nice alt trades over the past few months. I still have just like almost got PTSD of like, am I actually going to touch like altcoins? But this is the first glimmer where I felt like, okay, I'm starting to have a little bit more confidence here in branching out a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should take things at face value and kind of like believe what the market is showing us. You know, like, yes, we're seeing some momentum, but I think unless BTC and ETH really start flipping these, I don't think that the up only conviction should be back in any shape or form. I
Hmm.
think in the meantime, listen, like hype for me was an exception. I haven't sold anything that I bought at 52 because I really want to swing that. For the rest, I did take two trades this week, but it's just those I'm more looking to, hopefully swing for like a 20% gain or something like that. But I eventually hope to do things that do like 2, 3, 4 X's. That was always my
Yeah.
cup of tea. But I right now, yeah, I don't feel like I want to take those trades yet. I think to me it would make more sense, apart from something that I have real conviction in, like hype. To me, it would make more sense to take like a few midterm trades just as a trade. And then if we get like that nice kind of either like this or kind of like this or something like this. I just want to see a little bit more structure that makes me believe that we're really at the tail end of that bear market. And that's where I think you have a nice chance to accumulate. Because let's be real, right? If we're looking at all these starts, like, sure, the moves that we did now from the low, they're they're nice, but they're still like pretty microscopic,
It's
right? Even
almost
the ones
embarrassing that we've been
it
talking
is.
so
They were
excitedly
so
about.
excited. I know. It's super funny. Even something like this for Link, like sure, it's nice, but if you really zoom out, like, you know, what are
Yeah.
we talking about? Because even if you would factor in those diminishing returns, which of course you can see, this cycle versus this cycle was already a different story. But even if you're swinging it to like, let's say half of this, like $18, and it's still, if you get a nice dip somewhere, that's still like a really good swing.
Mm.
So I would advise people right now to, have a little bit more structure before you start getting heavily involved, because things are up a lot right now. So I personally really am looking for these scenarios for those longer term holds. But to be fair with you, like I don't even know what I would want to hold. I haven't done
Yeah.
too
I,
much
I,
thinking about it besides hype.
yeah, that's basically. I'm like hype and BTC. It's kind of where I've been at, and I don't mind with BTC. I'm kind of like the trade that I took at 58.5. That's like my okay. I'm locked in for the cycle kind of setup.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
hype, I don't mind taking some like you say some shorter term like swings on this, but I would also like to have both of those if we move into more bullish conditions over the next 12, 18 months. But outside of that, I'm just going to be mainly playing smaller trades here and there. I'm actually interested to hear from you on your hype trade. What like a price target for you to take something off the table would look like here, and what you would want to see.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing we have to go off is fib extensions, gut feeling, and EMAs, but EMAs, they only exist in the moment, so they don't exist yet. For when we start, swinging higher.
Hmm.
I will delete this for clarity. This is something that was really nice for me. These fibs have worked super well. Even the first rejection that we saw was around the same fib that I like to use for first price targets. So therefore,
So
I always
clean, isn't
say
it?
super clean. So I always say when they work a few times, they usually work a little more in the future. So this would be like a first target to me around the $90. I also think that's coming into that first psychological $100 level.
Yeah.
If I had to really put a gun to head, I would say that we swing like a little bit above it and then like reject a bit, maybe.
Hmm.
And then of course we have something way higher. But yeah, it just depends like how the bull unfolds too, right? I think
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to say in the moment, but I think like between a 90 and a 100 is a good first target in my opinion.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that would be like roughly it's a little under a 2x from our entry here.
Yeah,
So
and
not too
like you
bad.
say, yeah, I mean that's a great take for from that entry as well. The I think like you say the most important thing on this point in the same sense of like making your thinking about taking an entry here is a bad idea. We also just need to see more price action to see how this unfolds in charts like this to be like, okay, where would we be looking at for price targets here if we believe that this is moving into like bullish territory, and see
Yeah,
how violent and quick or slow and steady like what the price action starts to look like over especially the coming weeks and month.
for sure. And also how things develop in general, right? Let's say like BTC stays is completely stagnant and hype moves to $100 in the meantime, that changes the picture. Or if they get regulation issues, if they have
Hmm.
their buybacks get canceled, there's like so much that can happen that affects the chart. So I think it's really important to be like aware of your surroundings to say so. So not just whatever you have in front of you on the screen, but also whatever is happening on the chart. Like I also just a quick thing to mention for Athena. Um, it's moving nicely, but they have an
Mm.
unlock on September 2nd, which is here. So that is just something, if anyone took that trade when I posted it this morning on X, just something to be aware about. I think it's always important to know these things, right? In a bull market, if we are entering one slowly but surely, they matter less, but they still matter. Um,
Athena's an
yeah.
interesting one because I remember, and I can't remember all the details, but I remember doing a deep dive into this a little while back, several months back, and then I ended up hearing a podcast all around it. I'll try and dig it out and share on X at some point. The I think that Athena they'd set up like a DAT type structure that was focused on acquiring locked tokens to basically absorb some of the impact of token unlocks. I'm probably like completely butchering the details on all this, but there's a load of this like interesting like minutia like around all of it. I'm sure probably Arthur or someone has tweeted about this because I remember him in like being very bullish and probably an early investor in Athena. But there's like a load of stuff in and around Athena in particular that's quite complex around the unlock stuff that
Mm,
is just another thing to look out for.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's also why I always say I think it's really good to work in trading groups. Like, of course, you are always the one executing your own portfolio and your own book, but in the end, it's really nice if you have a group of people around you, or even these type of streams, right, where you kind of like
Hmm.
gather that information and have a little bit more anchor points to make those decisions based off. Yeah, let's see how we go. I think for now this looks good. September 2nd is a few weeks away, I
Hmm.
guess. So no, I really like this chart and I'm hoping for the rest, because I know we're almost at time that we get some sort of little consolidation here. And then during that consolidation, things will, I hope, dump a little bit and go sideways a little bit. And then eventually we will really clearly see which are the early movers and the front runners that have the most attention on the altcoin side. And that is what you want to focus on, in my opinion, because those will have more shallow dips, they will move quicker, they will move cleaner, and that is something I'll definitely be on the lookout for. And then also this BTC daily close right now looks good. If we close like this, I'll
I
be
agree.
happy.
Same. and it's just
Let's hope we don't
really nice
reject.
to have. Yeah, well, it's just nice to have some volatility. Um, and
I know.
coming into a historically volatile period, yeah, there's going to be a lot of trading opportunities to the upside and downside as well. So
Yes.
plenty for everyone watching, listening to dive into. As as always, I think we should probably wrap things up around this time now. But like, there's been so many good call outs in this stream already, and some of the different like levels that everyone can have a little look at. I think for anyone that is watching now, we will have like the replay straight away. That'll be out on the Kraken FX, Kraken Pro X accounts. Make sure you follow there. If you're not following Breakout Prop, you should be. So hop on and see there's a load of good stuff happening around on the prop side. Of course, as always, follow at Dentoshi. And if you want to see all of my poor trades, you can also follow me at Matthew Barley. And we will be back very soon. Next week, actually. I think
Yes.
we got Trader Matt
Special
on, right?
guest. We
Yeah, it's gonna
do
be great.
double Matt. Double Matt. I
Double
love
Matt.
it.
There can only
Mhm.
be one. It'll be a fight to the death, to the end. But as
Trading
always, thanks so
competition,
much.
maybe, no?
Yeah, well, then I guess I may as well just not show up. I think Matt's gonna win that one. Um, but yeah, thanks again, Dan. Looking forward to next week. I'm sure, hopefully, we're gonna have a lot more of these impromptu streams because there's gonna be a load of great price action to trade. So
Please.
we'll be doing more and more of this very shortly.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'll keep you guys posted on the developments on the things we discussed today. A little bit of video or just charting content over the next few days. Definitely eyes peeled. I think this is the time to be online. So be there.